Daniel 5:1. Belshazzar Malka Avad Lachem Rav. Larav Rabvanohi Alaf. Vala Ovel Alpa Chamra Shateh. And that brings us to Saluk Sof Pasuk, so back to the beginning. Belshazzar, the new king. We haven't seen another king other than Nebuchadnezzar to this point. All of the chapters of Daniel begin by identifying who the king is, except for the final chapter, chapter 12. Hebrew and Aramaic, the same. Belshazzar is going to show up in chapters 5, 7, and 8 in the first verse as a time stamp, so in his reign, that idea. So coming up to the Ravia here, we see Belshazzar and then the king, and then the next word is a pa'al, perfect, third masculine singular from ayin beit dalet, which you remember means do or make in Aramaic. And next up, this is a very familiar root from Hebrew. Surely it means food, right? Well, looking at the Zakef Katon, underneath it, we see this adjective. So great food. He made a great food. So what normally results in an English translation is the idea of a feast. Let's look at extra biblical Aramaic to see if there are other uses of this word. Here's an ostrakon, and it's the concave part. What is this? It's a piece of pottery from the inside of a pot rather than the outside, so it's bowed out. And here's a drawing that kind of shows a little more clearly what the inscription has. And then on the third line, we see Lamed Chet Mem, representing bread or food and water in the context of talking about what a prisoner eats. It looks like in extra biblical Aramaic that we don't have this idea of a feast, but we just go back and we say big food must mean a feast to Belshazzar. Continuing on now, we have for his, and then his nobles or his lords, and then at the Atnach, we have 1,000. So for 1,000 of his lords. And then conjunction, lamed preposition. It's actually two prepositions together. And it looks like together it means, and before the 1,000 that was just mentioned right here, the wine he was drinking. That's all participle masculine singular. Now, this particular word for wine is not the typical Hebrew word for wine, but it does show up in its cognate form, chemer, in Deuteronomy 32:14. So altogether, Belshazzar the king made a great feast for his 1,000 nobles, and before the 1,000, he was drinking the wine.